Welcome to Tools for Time Traveling, the podcast equipping creators to build the future today. Because the future isn't something that just happens to you, it's built by creators of all stripes.
Every episode, we'll talk to a creative industry expert to get a behind the curtains look at the past and present of our creative industries, so you can gain that unfair advantage as you build out the future of your career. This season, we're focusing on music creators and providing strategic tools that help them navigate this often disrupted industry as they take control of their future.
All right, now let's jump into the episode. All right, what's up, time travelers? This is gonna catch on, Des. It's gonna catch on.
Okay.
Welcome back, everybody, to Tools for Time Traveling, the podcast equipping creatives to build the future today. I'm Gavin Guidry, content creator turned creative director. Des, what's up?
Hey, and I'm Desmond Dickerson, futurist and strategist and consultant.
Awesome. So if you've been tracking with us on these past couple of episodes, we've been interviewing tons of really smart people way smarter than us, or at least smarter than me. Can't speak for you, Des, but just about the future of music, what it's going to take to get from the past and the present to the future. What are some of those insights and some of those things that we can start thinking on, prototyping to help us get there. And we're not interviewing another person today. What we really want to do is just continue to draw connections and pull out insights from those past guests that will help give you that unfair advantage, help give you that head start on how you help move us to a more creator-friendly future. And this one, to quote my man Marcus Hollinger, the future is creator. So Des, what are we talking about today?
Yeah. So we got a little bit of a hot take today, man. A little bit of controversy. Okay.
Yeah,
so
let's get it.
Based on these insights, based on these conversations we're having, this is just what it is. In the future of music, it's not going to matter how well you sing, how proficient you are with an instrument, or how great you are at songwriting.
Preach.
The future that we're seeing start to emerge is turning musicians into content creators. And hey, if this is already stressing you out, you're not the only one. We had this exact conversation with Bosco. She's an R&B singer, but also a multi-hyphenate designer, creator, founder of Slug Global Agency.
Shelf life, and the anxiety around content versus art, and like knowing where to stand in that. I think it's a lot of tension around like those two things, and I think if like we don't like address that, it could kind of go the other way.
And when you say content versus art, are you speaking of like that tension of like, let's say artists, right? Like music art, like artists, they want to make art, i.e. they want to make music. They want to make, but then there's the side of like, okay, well, then how am I going to make this pop on TikTok, right? Which is the content part of it. Is that the kind of like tension you're talking about?
Yeah, and having the proper time to still be like well versed in the creativity and the magic of that, because you might be 80% finished with an album, but if you're trying to like meet like festival season, it's like that 20% where it's like, all right, do I just hurry up and finish this song? Or do we like wait, like SZA has made us done, but the caliber of work, the songwriting, the discipline that it took for her she just dropped 3 singles and they sound like full albums. Like when your single sounds like an album, you've like ascended to like another level. And that's what I mean. Like, I'm sure at times she might have wanted to sacrifice her art for content, but this is a great example of like, y'all gonna get this art. It took 5 years, but y'all gonna eat it up and it's gonna be good because I took my time. So I'm happy for her. I'm happy that she was able to do that.
Man, I'm really happy to have Bosco on here to give us these insights as someone who sort of bridges the gaps between creator and musician. because like, you know, as someone who's not a musician, I thought like artists were already over this, right? Like when I saw Drake drop like a memeable album, like a copy and paste into meme and Instagram caption album, I thought like I was like, all right, well, artists are cool with being creators now, but you know, that is still very much an anxiety, and I'm glad that we were sort of like able to hear a little bit more about that. And you know, in this episode, if you go back and listen to the whole thing, which I highly suggest you do because it's great, Bosco has a lot of really amazing insights. But we talked about like the three horizons of of being a music creator. The first horizon being, you know, now into the very near future, being like music creators are feeling like specialized artists, right? Specialized artistry, and people are, you know, I'm a singer, or I'm a songwriter, or I'm a producer, or I'm a rapper, or I'm a, you know, this, I'm a that. And they are really trying to be specialized. And then the third horizon, so skipping past the second and going to the third, which is, you know, you're talking like 10 to 12 years, the more distant future, we're looking at creator ecosystems and how can creators be, you know, almost like ecosystems unto themselves. And so, you know, if we are going to get from specialized artistry to creator ecosystems where you're creating worlds of content and consumption around you, we really have to get over this anxiety and stigma of shifting from a specialized artist to a creator.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily an easy journey. And I definitely understand why artists feel that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a couple of like, there's baggage, basically. You know, so like, first of all, you've got a perception of like selling out, you know? So like some musicians might feel like if they're monetizing their like creative process, that they're like selling out or they're compromising their artistic integrity. Or they just might feel like there's this pressure to like look a certain way, you know, as they're presenting themselves outside of the music. There's also just that like fear of losing authenticity. You know, music has historically been this like just this form of expression and creativity rather than a commodity to be bought and sold. But as we're seeing with the rise of the creator economy, with like that specific focus on monetizing content, building personal brands, it could be kind of a threat to that authenticity ideal. And then the third part is like, it's honestly a loss of control. You know, you've got artists who've like meticulously crafted their brand, crafted their sound, everything about the way you experience them. But then when they just get thrust into the creator economy, that involves, you know, putting content out into the world, allowing fans to like, you know, remix it, interact with it, like interpret it on their own and do like whatever they're going to do with it. And, you know, some artists or the teams around them might just feel like, whoa, that's too much of a loss of control on how it's received and how it's like, you know, activated or whatever. Like, nah, I'm not with it.
For sure. But, you know, I think, and I agree with everything that you just said. I do agree. And, you know, maybe that's a little bit too presumptive of me to sort of like skip over some of those really real fears. But I think it has more to do with the stigma around the word creator and the misconceptions around being a content creator and an influencer and the memes and the SNL skits that come up when we think about, you know, content creator and everything that comes with that. But everything you just mentioned, from the loss of control, the loss of authenticity, and this concept of selling out, yes, those are definitely the pitfalls of being a creator in today's society. But you also, now more than ever as a creator, have the autonomy to circumvent all of those and just like straight up blast through and sort of go the other way. Instead of pitfalls, we're like taking control, we're taking authenticity, and we're taking, you know, all of those things. We're taking that to the next level by being a creator. So I think, you know, in talking about this shift to creator, it would just be game changing to change the stigma around the word creator. You know, whatever we need to do, you know, if we need to bring back NBC, The More You Know, and put it on YouTube video pre-roll, like if we need to, you know, write books around it, it, or, you know, whatever that may be. Maybe we even change the word creator to something else that's a little bit more acknowledging of, you know, because people have a stigma around using the term creator economy as well, which I want to be careful with us using that. You know, people are starting to take economy as a selfish capitalist, all about finances, when it really has more to do with, you know, being a creator and all of the things that have to do with that. So, you know, maybe it's around changing the word creator, changing the word creator economy to be something that's a little bit more holistic. But this shift is something that, don't just want to pick on musicians here. Anybody who has any specialized art or specialized creativity needs to start to figure out how they're going to shift to being a creator. Again, the future is creator. And so, you know, if changing the stigma around that concept of being a creator helps with that, then like, let's figure out exactly what needs to happen in order to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, as we try to figure that out, like, we just lean on the experts, right? So going back to another conversation that we had, throughout this research project here, was with Marcus Hollinger. He is the chief marketing officer at Reach Records, right? And he was talking about, engaging with fans really, starts with like starting to reimagine yourself as a creator and how you can relate to those fans.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's the term that really, that's the future right there, is creator. The future is creator, because recorded music, in a lot of ways, the value of recorded music is not consistent for everyone. Rihanna became a billionaire through Fenty, and I don't know what her contract situation is, but I doubt we get another album from her unless she just one day rolls out of bed and decides she wants to do that. So that again is signaling to a lot of artists. There's another musician, her name is, I'm trying to think of her name. She's an NFT creator who was also a musician, and she just wasn't making money with music, but she started participating in the NFT space and she crushes. And that creator hat is giving musicians a way to diversify and find income. There's an Atlanta artist named Bosco. She's an artist. She's also got an agency built around her that she built, that she's running. I think so.
All right, everybody, take out your bingo cards, because we're about to say it one more time. The future is creator. Yeah. We're throwing it out there. And again, just love this insight about the creator hat, right? Putting the creator hat on.
Is that a creator hat that you're wearing?
This is a creator hat. I like it. It's like a nice little crochet bucket,
Yeah. Is it
we're
available on your Patreon for purchase?
Oh no, shoot. I wish though. Maybe Liz could start making some. She's pretty creative. She's pretty crafty. Right. But yeah, just two guys in cardigans sitting here telling you to put your creator hats on. And yeah, because what this hat allows is freedom. The freedom of being creators. When you take those shackles of being a specialist off, you really get to experience the freedom of being a creator. And it's Marcus brought up a lot of different examples. One being Bosco, who of course we also had the pleasure of having on the pod. You just heard from her a second ago.
Yep.
But we talked about that in her episode as well, and how the freedom of being a creator allows you to play in so many different arenas.
Yeah. You don't have to just be locked into like one art form. So while again, the term itself, creator, maybe that's the issue that people just have like a problem with. But when you change that mindset of like, I don't have to just, operate in this one lane, it just opens you up to so much more. And honestly, you don't have to be beholden to like social media platforms and the way that people are thinking about creators in the past. Like there's a new way to think about creators and how this is all going down. And there's even some newer platforms that are starting to emerge that offer even greater control and some kind of tailored features, right? So
Yeah.
one of them's Discord. It's a social platform. It allows people to create and participate in communities that are really just centered around their own shared interests, right? So if you're a musician, Discord can be a powerful tool for building a community of fans and then just engaging with them in new and interesting ways. So like you set up your own Discord for your fan base. And then like one example of a use there could be like hosting listening parties, right? That's one of the unique features of Discord is that it has this ability to stream audio like in real time, like live as it's happening. So of course that's like an ideal platform to start, hosting listening parties or, sharing new music and just immediately getting that fan feedback. And then, as we're thinking about these like kind of, niche platforms, there's also Patreon, right? And that's a membership platform. It allows fans to support creators on a recurring basis in exchange for like exclusive content or some other perks, whatever it is that the artist or the creator comes up with. So, if you're a musician, you can use it to offer exclusive access to your music. Maybe it's an early release. Maybe it's behind the scenes content or, bonus tracks or whatever that is. It also, you can like personalize the things that you're offering to folks. So maybe it's like a personalized message. Maybe it's a live Q&A session that you have for like just the most dedicated fans.
There's also Be Real. Desmond, do you want to be in my Be Real?
What?
Right.
Chill,
3,
bro.
2, 1. Yeah.
I thought my intel from the Gen Zers in my circle were saying Be Real was a rap. Like it was like it came and went.
It might have, but I'm not a Gen Z, sir. And me and my millennial friends are still on
letting it
this
rock, huh?
heavy. Yeah. Feels like the old days of Instagram. Honestly, when you had like 10 friends and everybody was like, oh man, they're doing this, they're doing that. It was like, it was a cool way to keep up with what your friends were doing.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think of Snapchat too. Like it's all
Snap.
about like,
exactly. I still use
what's
Snap, by the
happening
way, which
now.
might be embarrassing. But whatever.
That immediacy.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just another way to connect with people. I think we could even throw Substack in there as another another tool and another platform that people are creators are using these days to build audiences, build another revenue stream for themselves around their content. And I think with each of these, right, like if you're a music creator listening to this, it's really time to start thinking of the people who use these kinds of platforms. Most of them are what we would consider quote unquote YouTubers, gamers, but we really do need to take a lesson from them in the ways that they create and build communities on these platforms. So, if we're talking about game-changing phenomenon, it would be really game-changing to create platforms for musicians to become creators themselves.
Interesting. Okay, like what does that mean?
Hopefully somebody listening to this is, a lot smarter than we are. But, it's like, taking some of those things we listed off and thinking about like, what would it look like for creators to build their equity on those platforms rather than a label, or a label to work more closely with a creator platform and have people build their equity there instead of focusing solely on catalogs. I think that could be a potential way forward. But I think whatever it's going to be, like, getting involved in these platforms, whether it be something more future focused or something that's here now, like the Patreons, the Substacks that we talked about before, it's going to require investment, and it just really takes a lot of time and resources to offer compelling content and experiences that fans want to pay real money for. Think of like, a Mr. Beast, if you will, who is like, if you don't know Mr. Beast, you're living under a rock. He's the biggest creator on the planet. But he put in the hours, like hours on hours, like you talk about 10,000 hours of mastering something. Like he's a master of the master of the master of like mastering YouTube. But that's the reward. It's the intimate relationships that he builds. Like every fan he has is like is his biggest fan. And so I think like if artists want to look towards an example that's a little bit closer to home, then we can look at record labels as an example of an investment in an emerging digital platform that really paid off. And this really came from a conversation that we actually had with my dad. Shout out my dad, Demet Guidry. He was an SVP at Columbia Records in, the heyday of record industries, the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, where they were record labels were just in their golden era. And we talked a lot with him about the past to learn a little bit more about what that can teach us about the future.
As all of these streaming services started to pop up and the battles were starting with rights, because again, the technology has far outpaced the legislation for the technology when it comes to copyright, et cetera, et cetera. But it was Sony, Universal, and Warner, the only three that are left, went from a big six to a big three. Those are the guys that invested in Spotify, and that's the piece of the puzzle a lot of people don't talk about. So here you have an industry that's hurting, that went from record profits to record lows, and they're trying to figure out, what are we going to do? Nothing's changing. Okay, how can we take the power out of iTunes and folks like that, right? That have this download business, that have this business that, the kids have bought onto this idea of music being portable. That genie's out of the bottle. It ain't going back. You know what I mean? We have our relationships with terrestrial radio, but satellite radio's gaining, internet radio's gaining, streaming's growing. So they came together to invest in something they could own, though they never claimed they owned it. In fact, you didn't really hear much about it until Spotify went public, and then the label started pulling their money out, and everybody was going, wait a minute, So they anointed Spotify of all of the market. The market was flooded, as you guys may remember, with startups. Everybody's trying to do it. They anointed Spotify, gave Spotify the rights, because again, this is a rights game. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have the rights of Columbia, Sony, Warner, and Universal, then what do you have? All of the independents. Nobody's going to pay you $9 a month. They're going to pay you $9 a month to hear the stuff they grew up on, and hear the new hottest stuff that's on the major labels, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that was one of my favorite clips, one of my favorite conversations, because I'm just a big fan of Spotify, so it's kind of cool to get a little more of the history.
I'm a company man.
Shout out to Spotify. A little of the background of like how it came to be and what helped it really like get that spark to start off with. And honestly, we all know how much of a game changer that Spotify and these other streaming services have been in the music industry, and it started with that investment from the biggest labels in the game. So as we've been talking and looking at these insights, we think it would be even more of a game changer, just a huge paradigm shift if artists themselves start to follow that same approach, right? So whereas the labels, they decided to invest in this, upstart digital platform, what if artists collectively did the same and invested in these audience management, audience engagement platforms that we mentioned before, like Discord, like Patreon, and these platforms that allow the artists to monetize their followings without necessarily compromising the value of their music catalog or their future musical output, right? They're not like trading anything off. Really, they're just capturing the latent value of the adoring fans that they already have. And there was another conversation we had with Erin Knight, who is an artist manager and leads a label herself. And she was talking about the lack of value that's even in the industry and that a lot of artists experience themselves.
In the music industry, less than 1% of people who release music make a living off of it, right? Much less pay a team. I'm on the business side, which means that you get paid and that I get paid from what you get paid. That doesn't make sense, right? So being in the music industry, a reality that a lot of people have to come to, that's a really hard truth, is you're not going to make it. Internalize that. You're not going to make it. And for those who are so frustrated by that statement, it's probably going to be you. Like, you'll probably potentially be the one who could make it, and then you have to outlast your own self-doubt. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, but most people they're not even aware that you're not going to make it. What? It's like 70,000 songs uploaded to Spotify daily. That's just Spotify. That's not Deezer. That's not YouTube. That's not all the people who are like, how do I put, that's not all the songs created in what? You're not going to make it. That's why for my artists, I'm like, I do not care if you make music. Like, what? Everybody makes music. What? So if you can think from that standpoint, like, don't get into the music industry. Figure out, you know what I'm saying? Spotify is not in the music industry. They're in the technology industry. But you cannot be a music artist without utilizing Spotify, right?
Yeah.
That's how we have to think. This is hard. Life is hard, period. The music industry is discouraging AF. Every day the rules change. That's why I learned how to play the game, and then I got out and created my own. I'm not in the music industry. I'm in the people business. People will always make money. People will always win because we are storytellers, and storytellers always win. So we're going to win regardless on my side, but I had to learn that. I had to get out the music industry. I had to be in it so long that I was jaded by the fact that I wasn't really making money. I wasn't getting the answers and the solutions that I wanted, that I was like, if I get out, maybe I can make more. And so I didn't even, most people still think I'm in the music industry. My mindset changed. My actions didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like same universe, different direction, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the most surprising stats that our podcast has unearthed. You know, I don't know if the exact statistic is 1% or if it's 5%. I've sort of seen both. Whatever it is, it's a very, very low percentage of people who can actually make a living based off of the money that they put out, which just lets you know that there's a real uneven distribution within the industry. I don't think there's one, you know, quote unquote bad guy here in terms of like, you know, the labels or the software companies that are that you're actually streaming music on. You know, I think it's just there is more disruption that needs to come to music. And with that disruption, a key takeaway from this insight is that we need a way for musicians to diversify their revenue streams. And this could be potentially through creator platforms. It could also be through the internet that is to come, you know, with Web3. And, you know, I know that's like a cuss word to some people. Don't tune out. Keep your headphones in. Because, you know, we're not in a Web3 world yet. You could go back and listen to our episode with Mike where we talk about the fact that we're not in a Web3 world just yet. But I do think there will be some form of blockchain technologies, blockchain, you know, on-chain creation. And as a musician, you put a lot of that, you're going to be putting a lot of that autonomy and control in the hands of a label. But as a creator, there are countless platforms making it really easy to create tokens and collectibles. So again, transitioning to creator is really just going to help with the transition to the next internet. I'm not going to call it Web3 just in case that grosses people out.
It's interesting, man. Like I'm more so on the skeptic side of things, but I did have a conversation. I think it was my friend Jonathan. He works in crypto and venture capital in crypto, and he was talking about like, you know, blockchain opportunities that attach to like creative outputs, right? So like maybe you do like a guitar riff or some sort of, you know, piece of music that could be sampled, and then you attach it to the blockchain, and it's like, yo, everyone knows you made this, you made it at this particular time, and anytime it gets like bought, sold, reused, you're getting the credit for that. So you know, hopefully these emerging technologies are able to be used in ways that are helpful and useful to artists. And hey, if anyone recently has tried to get concert tickets, you know the bedlam, the mayhem that experience is.
Exactly.
So, you know, maybe some of these newer, whether it's a blockchain or something else, maybe some of these technologies can start to help with that, because clearly there's a huge need for that.
Yeah. Look, we just need to give the power back to the people. All right. That's all it is.
That's what it always is. That's what it always is.
That's what it always is.
But you know, that's essentially kind of what this shift is, right? Is empowering artists to know that you don't have to just be in this small box. Like, we're giving, more power back to artists, to musicians, when they recognize, hey, like, I can be a creator too, and it doesn't have to have this baggage for it. So as we think about like the most important elements when it comes to the future of music and how it relates to the creator economy, or that shift to creator ecosystems, it starts with just changing the stigma around the word creator, and just how big of a game changer that can be if people start to think of themselves outside of a narrow box of what it is that they can make. And then as we move forward a little bit more and we start to embrace that concept, then it becomes a matter of embracing the platforms, or creating these platforms for musicians to then start to think of themselves as creators as well. So I don't know if it's new tools that are introduced that help them to expand their creativity. Maybe it's some sort of AI tool set that says, hey, I'm just a musician, but maybe I can use this and it helps me to be a better graphic designer or better video maker for some of these other components of what I want to do and how I want to capture my talent. And beyond that, it's important for the musicians to actually invest in these platforms, right? So maybe they're investing their own time, their own resources, or maybe, some of the more successful ones, they're investing in the companies behind these tools to, enhance the feature sets and make sure they're more robust offerings, just adding into this entire creator ecosystem for other artists. And then, another key takeaway or game changer is, again, just understanding only 1% of folks in the music industry are even making money off of the music, right? So again, it's profound shift when you start to think as a musician, hey, maybe I am a creator. Maybe I can diversify my revenue streams, and I'm not just locked into this one thing, but there's other opportunities for me to be able to make money. And then that last piece is, as we were getting in from Panos as well, is just that game changer around hitching your ride to not necessarily Web3, but always just staying right at the edge of the curve. What is it that you were talking about before, that Gartner hype cycle, right? Like, always staying on the right part of that to understand, hey, these new technologies are emerging, and it may not be as useful for me today, but I can always be ahead of the curve when I'm starting to think, all right, how is this technology going to play out in 2 years, or in a year from now, or whatever that's going to be. And with that mindset, you're always able to just kind of stay one step ahead of getting disrupted yourself. Yeah. So there's just a ton of change. There's a ton of change, and I think that's kind of a prevailing theme with this whole project. And one big theme here today is that, like, it's not so taboo anymore to be looked at as a creator, or kind of engaging in the creator economy, even if you're already a musician.
Yeah. And again, these takeaways and these game changers, these aren't the solutions that are going to help us get to the future, but they are just a prompt, a canvas, a head start, hopefully, for you innovators, you creators, you time travelers, to work with. And we love to hear, like, what are some of the things that you're thinking about? Are there new technologies, new frameworks that you are thinking of that will help you as a music creator, you as a label executive, you as just an interested party, to help musicians get from specialized artistry to creator ecosystems? What are some of those things that you're thinking about? We'd love to hear them. Hit us up, scroll down below if you're listening on Spotify. There's a little Q&A for you if you want to let us know your thoughts, or just obviously leave a comment if you're checking us out on YouTube. So yeah, that's our time. I'm Gavin Guidry.
And I'm Desmond Dickerson.
All right. And we can't wait to see what you create. See you next time.